Can you stop enjoying yourself?
I like that.
Hi everyone, my name is James Ivey.
I'm Paul Drew.
From the Studio Rats,
Yes.
and we are on our jolly days. We've come to the seaside.
We have.
We're in gorgeous Southend-on-Sea to join, quite frankly, the legend, Mr. Denis Cornell.
Legend it is.
Hello.
I'll take that. So, as many of you will know, we have been plotting with Dennis to create a Studio Rats custom amp.
Very
Very exciting. And we thought we'd document the process we've got to so far. So again, as many of you know, we've been testing is a very loose term for us.
Yes.
But playing with, having a noodle with a couple of Dennis's amps to try and get some kind of baseline ideas and stuff. But we'll get to all that shortly. This is probably going to be a long video chopped up into sections. And we'll try and make those sections make some kind of sense as much as we can.
You don't really make sense.
No, not really. No. But Dennis, thank you so much for having us down.
Pleasure.
Or back, in my case, to talk amps and stuff. Just tell the interwebs a little bit about you, a little bit about your history, how you got to where we are in building your own amps and custom stuff.
And can we get some famous users as well?
Yeah.
Some
Famous users as well.
Feel free to name drop and
Feel free,
throw them in
please
all you
feel
can.
free.
Yeah, I could go. I mean, the trouble is with name drops, I'll probably go on for ages and ages and
That's
ages.
good.
So,
That's good news.
okay, so my basic history was when I was at school, you weren't anybody unless you had a guitar. So I had to get a guitar. It took me quite a few months because I said to my dad, "Can you buy me a guitar for my birthday?" No, not that. I'm not listening to that devil's music. Because back then, you'd like listen with mother or whatever. You had very, very little choice of listening to any kind of music. You had pink toothbrush and blue toothbrush.
One of my favourites.
You know, but of course at that time, suddenly you had the Rolling Stones. What's that noise? You know, so people like me, young, think, I've got to have a guitar. So it took me ages to save up to get my guitar. So there I am learning my C, Fs and Gs and playing around and of course, you know, it just sounded awful. And then one I was fiddling around my dad, classical guy, this sort of, his radio had 5 speakers in it and all this kind of thing, you know. And fine, that's fair. I mean, I'd bit rubbed off. A lot of classical music I still like today. But anyway, I was playing with this buzz, buzz, buzz on the back of this road. What's that? Buzz, buzz, buzz. So I hooked my guitar onto it. And suddenly, the guitar come to life. I thought, what's going on? I've got to get an amp because the amplifier seemed to make more difference than the guitar. But well, hang on, the guitar is nothing without the amp. You're just playing. You imagine playing your guitar without an amp for probably 4 or 5 months, learning things, and then suddenly plugging it into an amplifier. And really, basically, that's it. That's how it all started for me with amplifiers, because I just felt like my first amplifier was a Watkins. First of all, I changed the speaker.
Can I ask what Watkins amp?
It was a red and black. I think it was the 10-watt one. Dominator, was it?
The Dominator with the angled.
No. It wasn't the angled one. It was the square one. Can't remember the name. But it was the square one. It was red and white with black dots on it.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah. But I was in there changing around, got bigger speaker, and I didn't know what I was doing. But that's how it all first started for me. That's sort of like the guitar, and then suddenly the amplifier, which made this great big difference. So that's how it started. I left school, I'd done an apprenticeship. What do you want to do? Do you want to do radio and television or telecommunications, City and Guilds? I'd done radio and TV. That's all the options I had, because I didn't have loads of qualifications. I wasn't that clever. So anyway, so I'd done my City and Guilds in radio and TV, and then By this time, I was in my late teens, and I saw this job advertised, high-powered amplifier design maker wanted. I thought, oh, that sounds good. So I went for the job, and it was Dallas Musical Industries. And this bloke started asking me loads of questions, and he was his name was Brian Hucker. He became my mentor. He worked on radar and stuff like that. It was really like top knowledge, intelligent guy. He asked me questions. A lot of them I didn't know. It was just too much above me. They wanted someone with a degree. But then, of course, do you play guitar? Yeah. Do you know what an echo chamber? Yeah. And what about fuzz? Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I know all this. So straight away, although my academic qualifications weren't exactly what they wanted, I was in. And I worked with Brian Hucker for many, many years. He taught me everything about amplifiers. And we designed the Sound City range. It wasn't till a later date that I realised that the reason they were advertising for this engineer was a bloke called Dave Reeves had left them. He designed an amp and he decided to leave and start up his own company. And do you know who that was?
No.
Dave Reeves?
No.
Vox?
Hiwatt.
Hiwatt. Ah.
So the very, very first Sound City amps were designed by Dave Reeves, and they were actually Hiwatt amps.
Wow.
He took that design and went off and
Now that was, I was about to get on to mentioning one of our favourite guitar players, Tim Pierce, because Tim Pierce loves a Sound City amp.
Does he?
Yeah, he's got. I remember seeing some of his videos, and there was a Sound City, and thinking, right, mental note, see if I can find one of those, and that makes a lot of sense now, because if an original Sound City is effectively a Hiwatt, that makes a lot of sense.
Does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, well, as I say, I worked for Dallas Music Industries for a long, long time with Arbiter, who owned the company, and another company, Ivor was very much involved with Fender. He used to import the guitars and sell them. So naturally, when they imported the amplifier they'd done, I think it was before the Silver Face, and then after the Silver, there was a break when CBS took over, and I can't remember the exact history of it, but I was asked to get involved with repairing and doing all this kind of thing. Because meanwhile, in between time, we had sort of like massive redundancies, out of work, Maggie Thatcher, everyone, so I think probably twice I was out of work. And that's what made me started working on my own. I used to go around the music shops, Monkey Bees, Sonky Tonk, all the local music shops, and repairing everything. There was a place in London I used to go and repair all the Prophet synthesizers, all those stuff that, I used to...
Because they're analog circuits.
Yeah.
It's no effect, really no difference, really.
Yeah. It was quite technical, but there was lots of stuff, Moog synths and all that kind of thing, Oberheim. So I had to earn a living to pay for the mortgage and the house. So I basically started work for myself then, mainly, as I say, as an engineer. But yeah, I mean, name dropping, the first thing I'd done for Arbiters, this is with the Sound City stuff, was the Rolling Stones' second American tour. They said to me, right...
the names don't get much bigger than that.
No,
but they do.
I was up all night making, I think it was 3 amps, and to get it finished, to go on the plane to go to America.
Wow. And
And then I was thinking I was told at a later date that they never bothered to use which is the story of my life, I think, But anyway, so that's when we worked for when I worked for Arbiters, it was I'd be making amps for anyone that was famous at that time. That the sales guys could flog to, you know, and could market to. Oh yes, and then I'll start rabbiting on now. You might want to cut a lot of this out. then Arbiter took over Vox,
Right.
and they decided to relaunch the Vox AC30 and the 50, and Tom Jennings come on the scene. They had a bigger factory, moved to a bigger factory down in Shoeburyness, huge, great place, and Tom Jennings come in and said, right, okay, I want my own personal engineer. I don't want it to be Sound City. Don't want anything to do with Sound City. We're just going to work on the Vox stuff, and I want one man to do it. And that went to me.
Oh, nice.
So I worked with Tom Jennings. Tom Jennings was a lovely guy. He taught me a lot about marketing and stuff like that. The Vox badge had to be an inch up and an inch in.
Right.
I don't know if many people knows that, but originally the AC30 badge, go back, inch up, inch in. You used to go down to the factory, make sure, is that inch up, inch in, inch up, inch in? It was one of the things that it had to be, the badge had to be an inch up and an inch in.
Lovely. Oh, that's amazing.
But yeah, so I worked with Tom relaunching the AC30 and all that back in, that would have been late 70s, late 70s, early 80s.
Right, lovely.
And then again, then Arbiters went down again, and then I was back working for myself. And the first amp I made was for
Lee
Brillo, Lee Brillo. He was the singer, and I made him an amp for his harmonica because he used to sing and play harmonica.
Yeah.
And I can remember going to Cliff's Pavilion. This is the first sort of big thing for me, and the amp there, little tiny Cornell amp there, sitting there with the microphone plugged in. It was on the drum riser, and that was. That meant so much to me.
But
Did it have a spot on it, like a halo effect on it?
I mean, I've got a book with all these little things in. And I funny enough, it sounds a bit strange, but I used to keep the checks. So I got a check with Lee Brillock's written on.
Nice.
I've got loads of different checks, you know, with their names written on. I kind of keep them as a little...
It's an alternative autograph book, really, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it's an alternative. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So fast forward to where we currently are, surrounded by, quite frankly, gorgeousness.
yes, some lovely amps.
This is one of the latest ones, the Voyager 20, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, so last time I came over, you explained it all beautifully to me. I promptly forgot everything, tried to explain it to Paul, and probably made a right mess of it. So could you talk us round the Voyager?
Okay.
Mainly for Paul's benefit as much as
Yeah.
anybody else's.
Okay, right. So what we've got with the Voyager is basic, simple amp with relatively high gain. I wouldn't call it high gain, but it's relatively high gain.
And just for anyone out there, the drinking game does apply to this video. Anytime anybody says, clean on the verge of breakup, you know what to do.
So now, the thing is that I've found over the years is that lots of pro musicians come in, and I made a little Plexi 20 watt volume and tone. It was actually Marshall's PA. A little story if we've got time.
Yeah.
Just a little story. Is that Fender done the Bluesbreaker amp, and they'd done several versions of the Bluesbreaker amp. And one of them was like a little 20 watt amp, and it had volume, tone and tremolo on, right? They also made a PA 20, which is a very, very similar amp, circuit wise. I'm talking about technical.
Yeah.
But of course it didn't have tremolo on it. But what that meant is it had a little bit more gain.
Right.
So guitarists were plugging into this PA 20, volume, tone, bonk, volume, tone, that's all it is, but it had this little bit of extra gain. Then the one with the tremolo, I think, well, hang on, I'd rather play that one. And the Marshall PA 20 become famous because of that.
Wow.
And But it was very, very simple, very, very basic amp, and I sort of improved it and made it, put switchable rectifier in and all kinds of little things to it. But a lot of pro guitars would come in and they would try different amps, and as soon as they went to that amp, it's the feel, there's so much feel there. And I likened it down to the shortness of the signal path. Now, I won't go into too much details, I bore you to death, but it seems to me that the less there is in the circuit, the better the feel of the amp and the guitar. Mm-hmm. So when you go into an amp and you say, well, I must have reverb in it, I must have this on it, I must have that, all the time you're adding more and more components, taking away this feel, the feel factor, if you like.
Yeah.
So when I started designing this, I think, well, I need to keep it as simple as possible, but how on earth do I do that and have what guitar, I know I want this, I want that. Some guitarists are lame. I mean, some of the amps out there, they've got like 4 channels with all knobs and God knows what else on, and some people love that. That's fine. But from my experience, the pro player likes to plug in, bonk, bonk, away they go. So I've had several pro players come down, try this out, loved it, but want the distortion in. Mm-hmm. So what I did is this switch, which is clean and mean, what it does is it switches in another valve. So in other words, the signal path is just going along nicely, right? But if you want that distortion, you're going to lose some of the feel. And unfortunately, I can't do nothing about it. It's nature, you know.
That's physics, yeah.
That's physics, you know, you can't do nothing about it. But at least it's there if you want it. So if you want to
So let's hear it before and after.
I was going to say that. Yeah, I was going to say that. Do you want to get the amp to how you want it to sound? How you think it should sound?
How I want it.
Yeah. yeah. Like
I
how
look up to you.
Oh, I know
you
about that.
Play the guitar better than I can.
No, I doubt that. But if I go, I mean, how would you, if I play a couple of chords?
So that's clean at the minute.
Yeah. Yeah, but we want the amp sounding like so when you switch it in, it goes, all right, there's
I think if I do.
Okay, yeah. Okay, let's give it a little bit more gain then.
Yeah.
Give it a little bit more gain.
So clean.
That's all right.
Let's add a little bit of sparkle to it. So
Yeah.
let's just sort of, let's add a little bit, back the bass off a little bit. I mean, I'm fiddling around with this now. Up the edge a bit. There's a bit more sparkle. Is that better or not?
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
A little bit more sparkle.
And then.
And the thing that's nice about that is, even though we're not at a high gain stage because the gain's not turned up, it is that clean on the verge of breakup sort of sound. And that's not overly loud, I would say.
No.
It's a bit more in the bedroom.
Yeah.
But
my right ear's not distorting, which is normally an indication
yeah,
these days.
absolutely. It sounds lovely, yeah. Absolutely.
So we've got the clean and mean, so like basically the extra valve for the extra gain.
Yeah.
And then there's two more dip switches. Or
Basically mid and treble. Mm-hmm. To keep the circuit simple, it's just got treble and bass controls. But if you want that little bit of extra treble, you can switch it in. So it also gives you the gain as well. So it's not just treble, it's up in the gain bit. So if you to do that again. One of the things I like to try to do is when guitarists come in, they're always fiddling around with this and playing away and fiddling around. I like the switches to actually do something.
Yeah.
Because you find, sometimes it's nice to be a little bit subtle, but I get a lot of pro players coming in here, and they can make things sound how they want to. They don't have to touch the amp. They can make them sound how they want with a fingered volume and a tone. So when these switches actually do something, rather than just be like a subtle change.
It's true. I mean, I've had a 2-rock amp, and the switches on that, some of the switches actually do quite a lot, but a lot of the switches you switch on, especially at lower volumes, and you're going, you're actually going, what's that actually doing? That actually makes it does make a massive difference. The thing that I like about it instantly is that it's tight sounding. It's not flubby.
Yeah.
On the bottom end. Which is great. Be interested to turn the gain up in a minute.
Yeah, and the same thing with the middle. So you can move your middle.
Do the same.
Just upping the ante every level of extra gain is just bringing that little bit more in.
That's great. Why do we need to do a Shearer amp? That sounds great. That's awesome, isn't it? Can we try cranking the gain up?
Yeah.
Just a little bit, just to see what happens with the...
But it's still articulate. If you roll the volume back, it cleans up, doesn't it? That's the lovely
Great.
thing.
It's really great. Yeah, you could actually just do a kick. Just wind that back. You know, and a boost pedal in front of that as well, just to kick in a little bit extra, would be great. It's fantastic.
Can I just be picky?
Oh, please.
And just say one thing. That, you know, over the years, different people coming in and trying things out, is if you're playing the guitar, and you're playing the amp and you're getting the tone that you want, that is relative to what you like.
Yes.
Now, if you're playing a Telecaster guitar, what says to me in my old history says I'm a country player. Now, what you're doing is you're trying to get a kind of an overdrive sound from what I would call a weak pickup, country types. You know, I mean, country rock is great. I love it, but it's kind of it's not the guitar for what you're doing. You want either a Strat.
I've been schooled.
Or a Les Paul.
I disagree with the Strat. So I think Strat is far less output than a Telecaster, especially this Telecaster.
Right. Okay.
With the Les Paul, I like Les Pauls. If my house is on fire, and if my house is on fire, the first guitar that I would grab would be this.
Right.
Out of all of my custom shop Les Paul and
that's not down to value.
That's not down to value.
That's because that guitar and you are basically surgically attached to the hip.
Yeah. So I think a Telecaster, and I said this on the video as well, I think a Telecaster is the most versatile guitar because you can do literally anything with it. You can way more than a Strat. Strat's too thin and ear piercing to me, especially in the bridge position. I really like Strats in the neck position, but a Telecaster for me sounds great in all positions. You can use it as, some people can disagree, but you could use it as a metal guitar, you can use it as a country guitar, you can use it as a rock guitar, you can use it as a pop sort of guitar, you can do everything with it for me, and it's the most articulate guitar, way more than I always find a Les Paul, because of the higher output pickups. It just flubs out on the bottom end more than say a Telecaster. I personally think this is the most articulate guitar, and I used to hate Telecasters. When I first started, I was Strat. Give me a Strat. I always want a Strat. And then I got my first Telecaster and just went, oh, that is what a guitar's supposed to sound like to me anyway. But yeah.
So we've then got treble, bass, volume, and edge. Now again, edge. What's that one doing? Just because
it just lifts up that it's a bit like a presence control, But again, there's this thing with the presence control, it's on the feedback of the output, and it doesn't really do an awful lot, apart from make the amp oscillate sometimes. So I've kind of redesigned it, so it's not on the feedback on the output stage. It lifts the treble up, but it actually does something. So you can actually lift the whole amplifier up treble wise, or down. If you're playing jazz, you know, turn the thing off. You know, playing, you know, country.
So if you found your amp wasn't cutting through on a stage, it would just be crank that a little bit.
You want that edge. That's what it is, and that's what it should give you.
Correct. Can I ask, are the controls, not knowing how amplifiers are designed or built, are they attenuators rather than boosters?
This is a kind of a technical question.
Right.
They are attenuators.
Right.
Right. I guess a simpler way of doing it, or explaining it, would be having a bucket of water. When the bucket of water is full, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when you've got a tone control and you go through the components to adjust the bass, so if you've got bass, you've got less treble, less middle, and all this kind of thing, you've emptied a lot of that water out of the bucket because you're getting the bits that you want.
Mm-hmm.
So what you have to do is you have to bring it back up again. So you go through a gain stage, valve, you go through your tone control circuit, tone stack they call it technically. It could be any, could be Baxendale, could be lots of different types of tone control. So you go through a passive tone control circuit and you've lost a lot of your gain. So you go through another half a valve to bring it back up again. So your bucket of water is still full.
Right.
That's passive circuit. With an active circuit, what you're doing is that the valve or whatever it is, transistor, chip or whatever, is sitting there at a gain level. Then when you turn the bass up, the actual valve, chip or whatever it is actually having more gain.
Right.
So you've got a certain level and then you're going up a level. So it's like having the bucket of water is half full. Then when you turn the bass up, you've filled it up.
Right.
Or when you turn the treble up, you filled it up. So that means then we don't now have to you don't have to reclaim the gain that you've lost. So if you think about it, so you go into your tone circuit, you lose a lot of gain, you have to recover that gain, so you have a recovery circuit. So preamp, attenuation, preamp.
Yeah.
Passive circuit. Active circuit, preamp, another preamp, but instead of a volume control gain all the frequencies, because that's what a volume control is, it covers the whole frequency range. It's covering only the bass, middle or treble or whatever you want.
Right.
So you've got that gain there.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what they call, that's the difference between a passive circuit and an active circuit. But the end result,
That's right.
the end result has got to be whatever you need to drive the output stage. So if you need, I don't know, let's just say 10, right? So you go through your first valve, you get 10. Oh, great, that's it. It's all right. Oh, but I'm on a tone control circuit. So you drop it down to 5. So then you have to go through another thing to bring it back up to 5 again to get to your 10 to drive your output stage.
Right.
But with your active circuit, you go through there at 5, and then your active bass treble are pushing it up another 5.
Right.
So you don't need that because you
don't need the extra.
don't need the extra because it's active. But the end of the result is still the same.
Okay.
But presumably the variation in those two circuits is what we might refer to as quote unquote tone. There might be some
Yes.
variation in the sonics.
Yeah.
It might have the same. It might effectively do the same job, but will sound different.
A lot of it depends on how you see things. You know, you do a lot of recording work, so naturally you're into mixers and stuff like that, and you find that with a mixer you'll have like bass control, and it'll have a naught position. So you're either cutting the bass or boosting the bass, or you might have a graphic equalizer, where again you've got a line of no gain, and then you're just boosting or cutting certain different frequencies. So it's a case of how you actually look at that. And of course in my technical way is that it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day we need that certain voltage to drive the output stage.
Right.
Whether you have it bass, active circuit, you know, graphic equalizer, panoramic tone control, whatever you want. Again, over the years I've found the more simple that tone control is, better it works.
Yeah.
But only for guitars. You know, if you're on your mixer and, you know, you've got this funny little squeaky voice and, you know, certain frequencies or...
Sounds like James is singing.
Thanks. Yeah, thank
So
you.
you want to bring down, you know, 5K a bit or whatever, you know, that's a difficult situation. Different
Different thing.
colour fish.
So I think it's fairly. The other thing I want to talk about was the full power, low power, because I think that's doing something clever as well, isn't it, on this one?
Yeah, not really. It's reducing the voltage.
Right.
So it's a simple thing. Instead of the valve having 500 volts on it, let's just say, it cuts it down to 200 volts, which means you can't get as much output. Right. So you lose all your headroom.
So that's interesting though, but you lose the headroom. You obviously you also lose your volume, because obviously you're driving the output stage, but you're losing headroom as well. That's quite interesting, because everyone goes on about high headroom amps and stuff like that, which is why perhaps, and say again, you'll know the circuits. Do you remember when we had the JCM 900?
Yeah.
And we said, even though we're going between the 50 and 100 watt modes, it sounded different.
Oh yeah.
It
Definitely.
sounded very different.
Yeah. Yes. You know, high headroom more open, low headroom more squashed, I guess.
It does depend on the circuit. Again, I find the easiest way you can do something sounds the best. So the fact that I just reduce the voltage, to me, sounds good.
Right.
Now, you know, without wanting to go on for hours and hours, you can talk about this. You can talk about the technical side of it. You can talk about the history of it if you want to. But at the end of the day, your object is to reduce the output of the amplifier. And the easiest way to do that is to reduce the voltage. Now, when you reduce the voltage, obviously the valve isn't as getting hot and you're not driving it as hard, so that might make a slight difference to the tone. But in all honesty, without doing that or attenuating the speaker, what else can you do?
Yeah.
You know, there's not much else you can do. You can start chopping the signal up if you want to. You know, there's all kinds of technical things that you can do. But again, as I say, history tells me simplest thing seems to work the best.
Cool.
So you've got different factors involved. So people say, oh, well, you've reduced the voltage, so the valve isn't working as hard as it should be, so therefore the tone's going to change. Yeah, probably very, very minutely. So yeah, okay. You got an old amp? Yeah, I've got an old Fender amp. You know, I've had it years and years and blah blah blah. Yeah, it's a sort of like a 20 watt amp. You know, oh, what valves you got? Oh yeah, it's got 2 6L6. It's only 20 watts. So what's the HT on that then? And you find that a lot of these old amps with this what they call brown sound, the voltage is already that low.
Right.
So whereas an old Fender amp could be 100 watts or whatever, it's only 60 watts.
Well, that's the whole Eddie Van Halen with his Variac, I guess. Yeah. Exactly the same. So turn down the Variac and the amps. Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Should we switch this to the other amp that we were trying, the studio. Let's do that, and then because that's a very interesting amp, I think, in its own right.
Yes.
Right, let's do that. So let's power you off that.